Hi and welcome. This is Andrew from Always Andrew Wedding Design. Sorry, coming on a little later than planned. I was having a few little technical hitches getting Facebook to work properly. But here I am and carrying on today with my A to Z of wedding planning. This week it's Q for questions. Now I know Sunday can be a sort of family day for many. I've been having a very quiet day at home, recovering from a workshop I took yesterday. Well, I was teaching yesterday, all about wedding design with some lovely UK of Alliance wedding planners. So I know that I wasn't necessarily expecting lots of people to pop onto live, but if you do and you are on live, please do say hi. Maybe pop me a little like, let me know you're there. It'd be nice to know if I've got some live viewers. But I have got some great questions that people have popped on one of the little posts a bit further down, which have given sort of questions, asked some questions about their wedding planning questions. I think it's a combination of people that are in the industry and people that are getting married, so there's a few different angles there. So I'm going to work my way through the questions. Some aren't particularly quick answers, some are quick, so I'll do what I can. I don't want to keep you all day, it is a Sunday after all. But if you do have any more questions, then please do pop them in the box. Hopefully I'll be able to see them. I know Facebook can be a bit glitchy sometimes, can't it? But hopefully I will see them and I will know that you're there. So far it's not telling me much. I'm doing it on my iPad, so my phone wasn't working properly. It's the first time I've done a live on my iPad. Hopefully it is working and I'm not talking to air. But there we go. So let's start with my questions. I've got them printed out in front of me, so if I'm looking down, that's probably what I'm doing. I'm reading the question. So the first question I've got, which it was two similar-ish questions. So Mary Jane asked, if planning a last-minute wedding, 6 months or less, what would you focus on first? That also kind of relates to how long does it typically take to plan a wedding? Is 6 months too short a time frame? Is it worth the hassle of doing it quickly, or do people find it better to have more time? That was a question from Rebecca. Yeah, I think they're kind of interrelated. So I'm going to sort of answer them both together. So firstly, how long does it typically take to plan a wedding? I like to think actually it takes as long as you need, really, ultimately. But there's sort of two kind of major factors I think that come into play when you're sort of deciding how long you're going to need to plan that wedding. Firstly is in terms of your budget. Are you going to need to save up to have the budget to pay for the wedding? In which case I would always argue that a longer time would be better. Oh, hi Nicola, I've got my first live viewer. Yes, and I can see the comments, so that's good. So think about what your budget is. Are you going to need to save? Or are you going to be kind of asking friends and family to help you with it? Because I think if you are starting from scratch and you haven't got a little pot put away, then I would advise giving yourself a bit longer to plan the wedding. Also, but if you do want to get married quicker, I think the time of year you want to get married really makes a difference. Because if you're desperate to get married in 2 months' time and 2 months' time is August, I think you might struggle a little bit. Because obviously August is a popular time of the year to get married, and a lot of venues, suppliers, etc., that sort of thing, get booked up really far in advance. Saying that, if you want to get married in 2 months' time and 2 months' time takes you into sort of February, maybe you're getting proposed at Christmas, you'll probably find it's actually doable, and you get some really good kind of last minute deals. Venues and suppliers, they want to kind of book the date, so in that case I think it is really doable. So yeah, I don't think 6 months is necessarily a short time frame. I think if, depending on the time of year you want to get married, it's perfectly doable to have a 6 month lead time on your wedding. So just be a little bit flexible, maybe not try and get married right at the most busiest time of year. So a 6 month or less last minute wedding, if you are, what would you focus on first? Going back to that other question, is venue ultimately I think is the most important. You really want to get that venue booked. The more flexible you can be in terms of what day and the timings for what day of the week you want your wedding and that sort of thing might make it easier to book that venue. But I would absolutely concentrate on the venue and kind of the big suppliers, so venue, catering, photography I always think is quite an important one to think about. It's one of those things that you kind of have afterwards, it's those memories things. I did a big long post on photography recently in my P, which was last week, wasn't it? So do take a look at that. Yeah, so I think if you really are sort of up against time, you've decided, yeah, got to get married within this time frame, Be as flexible as you can be and kind of book those sort of big numbers first. Dress obviously will be quite important. I think where the time comes factor is sometimes the less time you have, it somehow limits your options. It can limit your kind of the choices and what your options are. So that's where you need to just be a little bit more flexible with your approach. Kind of maybe think about alternate days, times, that sort of thing. Alternate sources for your vendors. So with the dresses, you won't necessarily be able to have like a made-to-measure dress, but you might be able to find something in a trunk sale or kind of off the rail sort of dress. So yeah, so I think it's perfectly doable to have a wedding 6 months or less, but it really comes down to sort of how flexible you're willing to be, what time of year you're thinking you're married, and if you are ultimately really desperate to do it and you're worried about the time frame that you'll have to do all of the planning, then obviously as a planner I would say hire one because then we can help you with that sort of tight time frame. So next question. Another one from Rebecca. She says, what are the key trends to either look out for or avoid if one would rather for 2018, 2019? I think the trends question is always a really interesting one. It's, are you generally a follower of trends and fashions, and do you want that to be representative in your wedding? I kind of, when it comes to trends, I'm not a big trends person, and I think when it comes to your wedding, I think follow a trend if you love it, if you like it, but don't follow it because it is trendy. Because then you don't want a sort of a cliche wedding, you're sort of this all, oh yeah, look, I saw that on Pinterest, let's have that at my wedding. Don't go for it because you just like, you've seen it and you think, oh look, that everyone's having that, let's have that. I would say if you're going to follow a trend, think about following a trend that actually has a bit of meaning to you and that you really love. Now in terms of what trends are out there and what they might, things to look out for, yeah, I think kind of sort of the botanical sort of looks, lots of foliages and greenery. I think that's something that will always be quite popular. And it's almost like a trend that's not overtly fashionable, as it were. So I think the problem with some trends, when they just become very much a sort of a, yes, that's so trendy, it's a real fashion statement, they can kind of date very quickly. But then there's some real classic trends, I find. So, for example, the sort of botanical trend that works really well. Also, things which I'm seeing lots of is kind of hanging decor, maybe kind of creative ways to sort of put the decor, rather than maybe thinking floor up, maybe think roof down, and that's going to be really fabulous. And I think that's something definitely to look out for. And just really personalising your day. I think that's one of those ongoing trends I think that's really important in the wedding industry. It's really how can you personalise it, and if there's something you love at the moment and it happens to be trendy, then go for it. And maybe if you feel it's not as trendy but then really you do love it, then why not have it? You really want to make that day as personal as possible. So what's another question I've got from Lucy Baker? She's asked, as a non-wedding planner, I've always wanted to know how you track everything. How do you keep each wedding organised? Spreadsheets. Well, not totally, but ask any wedding planner and they'll probably tell you how their love of spreadsheets. We are big fans of the good old spreadsheet. How I tend to work is as a combination of things. So whenever I get a wedding in, I will set up a folder on my desktop, and within that folder I will have subfolders for each kind of stage of the wedding, so in each sort of aspect, as it were. So I'll have the venue, the catering, ceremony, and then all the various different suppliers, and then I will set up a budget spreadsheet. And then also within that budget spreadsheet I have like a payment schedule with timings and dates and things. I also have like an overall timeline for each client where I kind of know what's happening when, so we know that it's sort of, at this point we need to be looking at the venue, and then we will move on to this and like the next plan, we kind of work our way through. It's almost like kind of in phases, I like to think of the wedding. So you have kind of your big things you have to do in the first phase, then you're kind of looking maybe at the design stage and the sort of the nitty-gritty booking of the suppliers, and then as you get onto the final stage, it's all those kind of the logistics and the finalising that comes into play. So for each client I will have this kind of main folder categorised, and then I'll have kind of an overarching sort of spreadsheet with the budget and my kind of timeline, and I know what I'm doing when, and so that's really how I keep on top of it. And I also have sort of an online software system as well, which I share with my clients so they can access it at any time and they can see at what stage we're at. Yeah, so that's how I keep it organised. As I said before, spreadsheets very much are wedding planners' friends. And it's very easy for, if you're planning your own wedding, to kind of just, I think, use a similar system. You mean just keep everything in sort of little folders, desktop folders, even have a hard copy folder, and just kind of keep it all sectioned off so you know what's what, who your suppliers are, all the different parts of the day, keep on top of all your budgeting and everything, and keep a sort of timeline so you know where you're at and what you need to do by when. I think that's really important. So that's kind of how I keep it on track, and I think good advice for anyone planning their own wedding. So next we have another question from Inga. Forgive me if I've said your name wrong. What's your wedding gripe? So my big wedding gripe as a wedding planner is I'm a big believer in kind of sort of being quite flexible and doing as much as I can for my clients and kind of working with what they want. So one of my big gripes is when I've sort of come across a supplier or a venue that perhaps isn't being as flexible and as accommodating, and kind of just sort of working with you to make you have your best personal day, as it were. It's very easy to kind of get stuck in your ways, I think, and some venues sometimes do, and some other suppliers sometimes do. And I think for couples' wedding, it's the first time you're doing this and you're really excited and you don't know how everyone else has done it. And so you don't necessarily understand that that's why you should do it. And I think that's a big gripe I find, because I want couples to really have the wedding they want, and I'm really happy to kind of work with them and be flexible and come up with new and creative ideas and make ways to make it work with them. So I do find it a bit annoying when other suppliers aren't quite so flexible and they're like, oh, we always do it this way, this is how we do it. And I'm like, well, can we do it a different way? Because this would make it more personal for the couple. And I think that to me is kind of a big gripe of mine, is when people just aren't really as flexible, as accommodating. Obviously, I'm not expecting everyone to just do absolutely everything. You've got to do it within the kind of how it works for their business. But I think it could be a lot more flexibility in some areas. So that's my big wedding gripe. So I've got a question from Rosie. She's asking, hi, I'm looking for some inspiration. What's your favourite kind of wedding to design? What kind of vibe? I love working on weddings that really show a couple's personality and almost sort of follow a certain amount of tradition, but not really kind of fixed tradition. I like couples to kind of sort of weddings with a twist. And I think that's kind of the other weddings that can be really fun, really relaxed, kind of show those weddings that they're kind of much more meaningful to the couple, and they pick and choose the traditions that actually mean something to them. So I always say this with my couples whenever I'm working with them, it's like, don't feel that you have to bow to the expectation of what a wedding should and shouldn't be. I think it's important that you make the wedding what you want and what you love about weddings. So what is it? So I think at the very early stages of a wedding, I would sit down and say, okay, what's important to you? What do you love? And I love working with couples that are really open to new ideas and creativity and thinking that, yes, let's do it this way, let's do it that way, because we love this. So I love cake, so let's have a cake dessert buffet, or we're really into cocktails, so let's make sure that every guest gets served a cocktail, one of our favourite cocktails for reception drinks. So you start kind of really injecting a little bit of personality, and kind of skipping the traditions that they don't necessarily like or enjoy. They don't kind of maybe see the reason for having those. And I think don't be afraid to kind of mix it up a bit, do what you want to make this a kind of the wedding that is meaningful to you. And those really are the kind of weddings I love the most. It's those ones where we've really kind of dug deep to kind of find what's the kind of wedding we can do for this couple, and how can we really make it like interesting and fun and just meaningful to them. And I love those kind of laid back atmosphere. And in terms of, I think what's really great is looking out, and what I love doing as well, one of my love kind of weddings is kind of looking outside of the box in terms of what venues you're going for. So I'm really not a hotel wedding planner. If you want your wedding planned, if you're having a wedding at a hotel, I'm probably not the planner for you. But if you want to get married at some really cool restaurant space or some sort of rooftop terrace overlooking London, maybe some really cool warehouse that's sort of overlooking the River Thames, anything like that, which is slightly more interesting, a bit more quirky space with a bit more personality, even a kind of nice dry hire space or blank canvas where you can really lay your mark onto it. I think that is always a great kind of wedding. I love those kind of weddings. So yeah, I would definitely say and that in terms of the vibe, again, having that quite relaxed, laid back, make it a lot more fun for you and for your couples. I do like those kind of vibe, the wedding. I just really relaxed, family, friends getting together, enjoying good food, having a party, dancing, and just really celebrating the whole marriage and the love, and that's what they're there for. So those are definitely the kind of weddings I love to work on. So I hope that answers your question, Rosie, and hopefully it has inspired you a little bit to kind of think of outside of your standard wedding box and kind of look at those creative, interesting venues that you can get married at. And I've got one more question. It's from Kerry. What are the main things people usually forget to organise until it's really late and they are running out of time? I could write a couple of blog posts on this. There's always lots of things at different parts that you think, oh, didn't think of that, they didn't think of that. And I know when I've come into a wedding quite late and I've sat down with them to talk about their wedding, and I'm like, have you done this? Have you done that? And they're like, oh, no, didn't do that. But as it's just, I'm not going to be here all Sunday afternoon, and I want everyone to be able to enjoy their Sunday afternoon. I think one of the main things that often I ask my couples to think about is almost like after the wedding. So people do think about, they worked out most of the planning logistics and they've been great and they've booked all their suppliers. But then like think of sort of what happens at the end of the night. Where's all the stuff that maybe you've brought to the venue, who's taking that, what's happening with that, how's stuff leaving the venue, and then what's happening the next day, or are you going straight off to your honeymoon? Will you need to bring your overnight bag with you to your wedding reception, because then you're going straight off? Have you got a change of clothes? So maybe you're going to go to, you're not going straight off to your hotel, so maybe you're just going to be overnight, and then, but some people, I've had that where they've actually forgot to bring like a change of clothes for the next day, and they've gone to their gone to breakfast in a wedding dress. So it's those sort of kind of post-wedding things I think are very easy to forget in the excitement of planning the whole wedding day, and you don't kind of think about the end of the night and then the next morning and then what happens after the wedding. So I think that's really important. I'm always saying, so have you got an overnight bag? Have you packed it? How's it getting to the venue? Who's bringing it to the venue? How are you then getting to your hotel if you're not staying at the venue where you're getting married? Do you need to book a cab? Is there a family member to take you home? What's happening the next morning, or what happens that night in terms of your belongings at the venue? Is someone going to be there to clear up, or are you going to have to go to do the clear up, or is the venue going to take hold of that? So I think that's one of those really kind of easily neglected things in the sort of fun and excitement of planning your wedding day. You sort of sometimes forget what happens at the end of the night and then the kind of the next morning. So I do think it's worth spending a bit of time to just think of that. So that's taken me all through my questions. I've not had many live viewers today, so I wasn't necessarily expecting to get more today. But if you do have any more questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to do another sort of little Q&A again. I think these have been some great questions today, and like I say, I feel there might be a blog post in the making. But I do hope you all have a lovely Sunday afternoon. It's been lovely chatting again, and I'll be back on Wednesday with my next letter, which at the moment I can't remember what it is. I have to go check. But it's been lovely chatting again, and do feel free to come back and ask more questions if you have any. And enjoy your Sunday afternoon. Take care. Bye.